say thank you to all my colleagues, state execs, who have shared this information about this meeting today. We have all been working in our states to make sure that we can do everything we can to help our campuses meet the requirements for financial value transparency and gainful employment. That's very frustrating for all of us, I know, and there was a slight delay to October 1, but very slight given all of the FAFSA issues every campus has been addressing. So we were delighted to hear that the National Student Clearinghouse, on which I serve, has been working on developing a solution to address these compliance requirements for campuses. And I do want to emphasize that this is a no additional cost requirement in terms of the solution that they're providing. And that is terrific, I know, for everyone who has all kinds of other challenges to face. And yet we certainly have to be in compliance with the department's requirements. So I'm delighted today to have with us from the National Student Clearinghouse, Melba Amisi and Sean McTighe. And Melba is the Vice President of Corporate Strategy, Marketing, and Customer Experience for the Clearinghouse. She's responsible for the development and execution of the corporate strategy and also central oversight of the customer experience. So thank you, all you customers, for being on today. She has over 15 years of experience in regulatory and operational compliance experience, and certainly we're talking about big time compliance today with the requirements that the department has instituted. Melba also specializes in developing and implementing and supporting compliance with regulations and third-party requirements, and has expertise in risk and privacy across multiple functions. So all of those are relevant to the work that we're doing today. So Melba, thank you for being with us. I also want to say that she and Sean will be sharing slides today. So those we will make available, and we are going to be recording this session. I hope we already are. If not, we'll get that going.
I started that, Hope. We're good.
Great. It's terrific. So I know a number of folks could not join us today, although we still have folks joining us right now, but we have a lot who couldn't join us today and wanted to know if we would record the session. So thanks to Melba and Sean for agreeing to do that. Sean McTighe is the Executive Director of Title IV Compliance and Data Intake Operations for the Clearinghouse. Melba has been there, has more than 15 years in the compliance-related industry type things, and Sean has been with the Clearinghouse for more than 13 years and oversees the data excellence, data integrity, operations, and audit resource center teams. So he certainly has his hands full as well. In addition, his team serve the student loan community, including student loan lenders, servicers, and guarantors. So working a lot with federal student aid, the National Student Loan Data System, and a number of external external advisory committees with the Clearinghouse. So both of them are with us today. They are going to lead a presentation, and then we are providing time also for questions. And I'm glad so many of you are on, because recordings are great, but unfortunately that you can't ask questions when those are going on. So I hope you'll all ask questions today to make sure that we can get everything out that's needed. And of course, we'll provide any follow-up that may be needed in addition to that. So I'm going to turn this over. Vicki from NCICU, I think you've got Sean and Melba as presenters. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Sean and Melba.
Thank you so much, Hope. I am going to share my screen. So if you could please let me know when you can see that. Okay,
we can see it. Thank you, Sean.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much today for attending our webinar, and a huge thank you to Hope for helping us get on this call with you. Our goal is to give you a very high level of the regulatory requirements today and the solution that the Clearinghouse has designed to help schools meet those. We are recording this, as Hope said, and we're also going to make the slides available. There's a lot of information in here. I want to preface that up front. And as you go through those slides, if you have questions about the content, please feel free to reach out to me and my team. There's a lot of resources that I've included at the end, and we are happy to meet with you and your institutions to go through any institution-specific questions as well. So as Hope said, my name is Sean McTighe, and I am the Executive Director of Title IV Compliance and Data Intake Operations at the National Student Clearinghouse. In my role, I work with institutions like yours to make sure that the data that you send to us is going to meet the regulatory requirements for the Department of Ed and for the lenders, servicers, and guarantors that participate in our services. So the Clearinghouse has been around since 1993. We're a nonprofit that was designed by the education community for the education community, and we essentially work with 3,600 post-secondary institutions to fulfill their compliance reporting obligations to the department. As we go through these next slides, I'll talk a little bit about our role and the specific role that we're playing in these financial value transparency and gainful employment reporting requirements. So for today, I'm going to give you a really quick update on where the regulations are. We'll talk about our solution. I'll share some background on the solution itself, and then we're going to get into a very high level overview of the reporting expectations and the Clearinghouse's solution to help schools meet those reporting expectations. And then as we kind of wrap things up, we'll talk about how to activate with the Clearinghouse if your institutions are interested in doing so, and then some key takeaways and things you can work on right away at your institution to make sure that you're prepared for that October 1st deadline. Okay, so as you can see from this timeline, there has been a lot of activity in the regulatory space when it comes to gainful employment and financial value transparency. Things have slowed down a little bit in the past couple of weeks. NASFA did put out a call to action on July 1st, requesting that schools request an extension of that deadline out to next July. They also provided some instructions on how to do that and a template for doing that. So if your school is interested in doing so, I would strongly encourage you to do that. However, other than NASFA putting out that option for schools and for us seeing a temporary injunction on just that gainful employment program length requirement, we haven't seen too much activity or too much conversation happening around an extension. And given how much work time is left in Congress, we are not feeling too confident that there is going to be any kind of extension. And so we at the Clearinghouse are moving forward with an understanding that this October deadline is likely going to be the deadline. And we are preparing to make sure that our solution can support your institutions with that reporting. So a little bit about our solution background. We started actively engaging with NSLDS and federal student aid in December. In those conversations, they said, in order for us to be able to operationalize this and really be successful, we want to collaborate with you because we know that you have a good relationship with schools. We know that there are things that you can do for schools that can help streamline this. And so if there's any way that we can work together to make this successful, we would love to collaborate with you on this. And so we work on a weekly basis with FSA and NSLDS. We advocate for schools by bringing forward unique situations that you might have that will help inform the guidance that NSLDS pushes out, that help inform the way in which they operationalize the regulations just in general. So there may be things like dual degree programs, for example, where if you have a student that is in two programs, how do you allocate the funding for those programs when you're reporting out the institutional cost and financial aid information? Or if you have a student that for the first 2 years is in a program where it's an undeclared program and then transitions into a program where they're actually going to graduate out of that program, how do you allocate funds for things like that? And so we'll talk to NSLDS about that. We'll say, you know, these are the trends or things that we're seeing with schools. You really should have guidance around this, or ways in which the schools can account for these populations of students. And we have a really good working relationship with them where they will listen to that feedback. They'll go back to their policy people, and a lot of the time we'll see corresponding adjustments. We also have a compliance advisory team of schools that represent all of the various types of schools, sizes of schools, and SISs that we work with that have really helped inform our efforts in creating a solution that's going to be meaningful to our institutions. And they look at wireframes, they look at our resources, and they look at how we're going to be communicating with our institutions, and they provide us a lot of tremendous advice on the ways in which we can best provide a meaningful tool for institutions. We also continue to put a lot of focus on making sure that this is a sustainable solution. If financial value transparency and gainful employment goes away, if a new administration comes in and says, this isn't something that we're going to continue to support, we know that the conversation around return on investment and the value of higher education isn't going anywhere. It's going to continue to be at the forefront of that conversation, and there will likely be something else that comes in place of financial value transparency and gainful employment. The conversation around short-term Pell continues to be very bipartisan. There's also state reporting requirements, accreditation requirements, and so the platform that we are building as the foundation for this new gainful employment and financial value transparency service is going to be a platform that can be reusable for all of those things, and will ultimately include our existing enrollment reporting and provide new features and functionality that will give your schools the flexibility so that as reporting requirements from NSLDS and FSA change, we will be able to quickly adapt to those and give you the tools and flexibility you need so that it doesn't require additional lift on your institution. So our release 1 for the financial value transparency and gainful employment is scheduled for the first part of August. And then I'll talk a little bit more about school signups. But as Hope said, this is a free service. We consider this an essential part of the compliance services that we are offering to our institutions. So some of the things I want to highlight as far as the value of this service and what the Clearinghouse does is that advocacy role that we play with federal student aid and NSLDS. We are continually working with institutions and NSLDS and FSA to really help promote the fact that there is a lot of flexibility built into the regs, and that has to be operationalized somehow when those regulations get put into place. And so that is where a lot of our conversation is centered around. When we talk about the implementation of the regs, how do we make sure that there's flexibility built in for your institutions and for those reporting requirements? And then as that flexibility gets built in, how can we as the Clearinghouse build corresponding functionality so that it alleviates that administrative burden on your institution? Something else that has been a huge focus for us is building out that secure site functionality that's going to offer you full transparency into the process and a step-by-step walkthrough of each part of the process so that you have all of the audit information you need and all of the on-screen instructions and validations to know exactly where your organization is at any point in the process, to understand where you are from a compliance reporting perspective, where you are from a data integrity perspective, and what you need to do next. And I'll show you some of those screens here coming up. And then, of course, having full on-demand resources, including live customer support. So my team will be available in the instance that you get caught up, just like in enrollment reporting, so that you have live customer support to walk you through. And then finally, data augmentation. You know, a big part of what we do is we're going to be taking the data that you report to us to build out these files that NSLDS and FSA are requesting. And if there are inconsistencies between what NSLDS is asking for and what you've sent us previously, we will be able to shore those up. So if NSLDS doesn't have all of the completers or graduates that you've sent to us, we will work directly with your institution to make sure that NSLDS gets that information and you get credit for the completers that you that have graduated from your institution. So I will tell you a quick little story. I moved to Fort Collins about 8 months ago, and in this spring we planted about 200 different plants in our yard. And prior to moving here, I would have thought a bunny was an adorable addition to any yard. Since moving here, they have become the bane of my existence, and seeing them, there's nothing that makes my blood pressure grow higher. These little terrors look at my yard like a salad bar. And we have fenced in our yard. We put in the fine mesh. I'm out there every day spraying the liquid fence. We've got coyote urine that we're spraying out there. We've got, I'm packing the fence with rocks and anything else I can do to keep these bunnies out. And there's still a few wily bunnies that are able to slip in. Now I want you to think of the clearinghouse basically as what I'm doing against these little bunnies, and these little bunnies as these new compliance requirements. The clearinghouse is going to continue to create systems and support that are going to do everything that we can do to reduce the effort of you having to address all of these new little compliance things that are coming into your yard and eating your salad bar. And we're going to put up those fences, we're going to put up those structures, and we are going to make things as easy as possible for your institution, whether it means going out there in the middle of the night with a pot and pan scaring them away. We will do everything we can to alleviate that administrative burden for you. Now, of course, there's going to be some bunnies that are going to slip through and that are going to require your attention, and we're going to work with you on those. But our role is really to help you understand what those requirements are, to alleviate as much of the work as possible on your institution, and then to continue to provide you with solutions that create transparency around your data. Okay, so moving right into what your institution needs to report. There's really 3 separate data feeds that we're talking about here. The first one is the response to the completers list, and we're going to focus on that first because that's the first piece of functionality we're delivering, and that's going to be delivered right around the first week of August. The second is the student detail, and there's 2 options there. There's the standard, and then there's the transitional, and we'll talk about the pros and cons of each of those. And then there's the program file. So jumping right into the completers list. The completers list is essentially going to be a list of your students that have completed, and it is going to be primarily students that have completed in the 17, 18, 18, 19 cohort. And that is going to be leveraged by the NSLDS to measure your debt to earnings and earnings premiums. So the NSLDS is going to send your institution, or the clearinghouse on behalf of your institution, a copy of this draft completers list sometime around the end of July. And they're going to ask you to shore up this list, to basically look at this list, tell us, is it right? Do we have all of your completers? If not, what completers are missing? And do we have all the right exceptions on this list? You know, are there prison education programs, for example, that need to be added, CTP programs that need to be added? Are any of these students that actually did not receive Title IV aid? And so let's walk through what the clearinghouse will do once we receive that list. So we'll receive your list, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to compare the data that NSLDS has provided on that completers list to all of the data that your institution has sent to us. And we're going to look and see, are there graduates that are missing from that completers list? And if there's graduates missing from that completers list, we're going to show those to you, and we're going to ask you, do you want these added to your completers list? And if you do, we're going to create a data feed to NSLDS to add those graduates into another draft of your completers list so that you can get credit for those graduates at your institution. If there are records that are on the completers list that are not in the clearinghouse, then we're also going to present those to you. And we're going to work with your institution to make sure that the clearinghouse accurately reflects the graduated statuses that are on the completers list that are not currently in the clearinghouse. So that may have happened because somebody in your financial aid department went out to NSLDS and updated a status from a withdrawn to a graduated, then neglected to update the clearinghouse. It's right in your SIS, it's right in the NSLDS, but it's not right in the clearinghouse. So that'll be an opportunity for us to shore those up. Finally, we will have an opportunity for you to identify your prison education programs, your CTP programs, and then identify anybody that may be on that list that actually didn't receive a Title IV aid. And then once all of those things are done, you can request a new copy of your completers list to see how those changes are reflected. And then at day 60, NSLDS is going to pull the final completers list, and that's going to be what's used to determine your debt to earnings and your earnings premium data. So this is just a sneak peek into how our secure site is going to display some of this information for you. So this is the dashboard. As you can see, we're going to be offering this left navigation that will be constantly open. That was some feedback that we received from our advisory team. And it's going to include a lot of great resources that are going to help you throughout the entire reporting process. It's also going to have an announcement section. So as we add in additional functionalities and features over the coming weeks, all of that will get posted here. And then at the bottom, you're going to see these 3 tiles that are basically the 3 different buckets of work: the completers list, the student level report, and then the program level report. Going into the service profile tab, this is where you will see any service agreement details. There's a tab for your users, so you'll be able to see which of the users at your institution has access to update your gainful employment and financial value transparency information, which users can view it, and then which users can actually make some of the broader decisions, like determining should we go with the transitional or the standard file. Your report preferences are just exactly what I said. Are we going with the standard or the transitional? And then report encryption is where we're going to store any kind of PGP encryption keys or information that your institution would like us to leverage for encrypting your files. Jumping back over, if we were to hit on that completers list tile on that initial page, it's going to take you to this initial landing page that is going to provide you with some instructions on how to complete your completers list. And it's basically going to tell you how to build your worksheet. This will be a page that you have the option of viewing it once, and then it'll eventually go away going forward, or you can leave it up there if you want to review it multiple times. Going into the completers list itself, you'll see this is where the rubber really starts hitting the road, and you'll see I like to call it our pizza tracker menu at the top, where it's going to tell you what stage you are at the process at any point in time. And each process is going to have this pizza tracker menu at the top to really help you understand where you are in meeting that particular requirement. It's also going to tell you how many days you have left to make corrections. It's going to provide you with some general instructions and information. And then it's also going to give you some statistics on your completers list. So if we select this build your worksheet option, it's going to take us into the actual completers list where those 3 buckets of work that I told you before are going to live. The first one being the student records missing from the completers list, the second one being student records that may be missing in the clearinghouse, and then the last one is reviewing and updating exclusions. So this, like I said, at a very high level, is just a sneak peek into how our secure site is going to help walk you through those data files that you would receive from the NSLDS. We feed those into a user interface to really help walk you through how to make sure that your data is going to be reflected as accurately as possible when they pull that final completers list. So jumping into the student detail file, this is where it starts to get a little bit more complicated. And this is the first, I would say, big decision that your institution needs to make when it comes to these reporting requirements. So when we talk about standard versus transitional, we're really talking about the amount of data that your institution is going to elect to report. The standard cohort includes 7 years of non-qualifying graduate programs and 8 years of qualifying graduate programs, where the transitional is just going to include the last 2 years of data across the board. So you may be saying to yourself, this is a super easy decision, less data, that's what I'm going with, way less work. But there are some really important factors to consider when you're making that decision. So we've tried to capture some of the biggies on here. The first and foremost being, has the cost of your program increased incrementally year over year in a way that is going to negatively impact your debt to earnings reporting? And so I'll show you what that means on the next two slides, but basically, has your program increased in cost in a way that once you start comparing the debt of your program to the earnings of the students in your program, it's going to shake out in a way that is going to negatively impact your statistics in your institution. Another question to consider is, how much more difficult is it to pull that additional data? Is it just the expansion of a query that you're looking at, or have you had an SIS conversion, and is that data actually stored somewhere completely different? Are you concerned the further back you go in collecting that and aggregating that data, that you have some data integrity issues? And so as you pull in that older data, that there may be some issues with reporting that data. And then how important longer term are some of the longitudinal benchmarks and insights that you would like to see from this FVT and GE data when those become available to help your institution make some strategic decisions. So talking about this first point here around the cost of your program, I want to talk about that in basically by looking at this formula. So this is the standard cohort formula, and if we just focus on the top formula here, the debt is determined for the standard cohort by the students who graduated in 2017, 2018, and 2018, 2019. And that is compared to the median earnings for the students who graduated in 2017, 18, and 2018, 2019. And that's based on what they earned in 2022. So it's basically, we're looking at apples to apples here. It's the students who graduated based on their IRS median earnings for those same students that graduated and what they earned in 2022. Because you've reported information on all of these students, because you've reported information from 2017, 18, 2018, 2019, so on and so forth. For the transitional cohort, remember, you're only reporting 22, 23, and 23, 24. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see what that looks like. So what happens in the transitional cohort calculation is they're going to take the debt from your students in 2022, 23, 23, and 24, and they're going to use the IRS median data for students that graduated in 2017, 18, and 2018, 2019, and they're going to use that same earnings from that first calculation that we saw for the standard. So if your costs have increased incrementally, and you're looking at higher costs for your students in 2022, 2023, 2023, 2024, which many schools are likely going to see, you're going to be comparing higher cost to lower earnings. And so that's an important thing to keep in mind as you're making your decision between standard and transitional. So have that as a part of your conversation at your institution as you're determining what is the right path to take. There may be some things that you cannot control, like how much data you have access to, which will force you into this transitional cohort option. However, really think about the numbers, really think about the outcome of those numbers when you're making that decision. So once you've made the election of standard or transitional, then everything starts to roll with the clearinghouse. We are going to take that decision that you've made, and we're going to pull together, based on the enrollment data that you've sent to us and based on NSLDS's logic, the student cohort that NSLDS is asking for. And we're going to look at the things like, were there at least 30 completers in the last 4 years in the 4-digit zip code family? And we're going to pull all those programs and students together, and we're going to create a file that is available for you on our secure site that you'll be able to download in CSV format. And then we're going to ask you to augment that data with the financial aid and institutional cost data elements. You'll be able to upload that back to us, and then we're going to run that through a robust series of edits to make sure that it meets the NSLDS enrollment reporting requirements and GE FVT reporting requirements the first time, so that nothing gets rejected out and you are good to go. The program file is actually, process is going to be very similar. This is the third and last requirement, and it's basically going to be a list of all your programs that have at least 30 completers over the last 4 award years, and it's going to provide information around the program enrollment, accreditation, licensure exams, things like that. So again, what the clearinghouse is going to do is it is going to look at the information that you've provided to us in your enrollment reporting, and we're going to pull that cohort forward for you of programs. And we're going to say, based on NSLDS's requirements, these are the programs that you need to report, and we're going to include in that information things like the program name, the zip code, the credential level, your enrollment that you've reported, your total enrollment, including both Title IV recipients and non-recipients. And then we're going to include things like the states within your metropolitan statistical area. And then you will send that back to us with things that we don't currently have, like, is the program programmatically accredited? And if so, what's the name of the accrediting agency? And what are the total number of graduates that took the licensure exam and the total number that passed it? Now, I want to pause here because we've gotten a lot of questions around my school doesn't have that information. Once the student graduates from my institution and goes off to take their licensure exam, we don't know whether they passed it or not. If your accrediting agency doesn't require you to track that information, those fields are optional. So you would just provide back the information as blank or non-required. There is a field that basically tells you how to report that back because it is an optional field if it's not required for you. So I know that was a lot about the 3 different reporting requirements, and we go into them quite a bit more in some of our other webinars. But I wanted to pull up and talk more, just a little bit about how to activate with us. So the process is fairly easy. You have to complete an amendment that is going to first and foremost allow us to be your servicer. We will complete stage paperwork that's going to allow your TG mailbox that's going to allow our TG mailbox, to receive your completers list. Our activations representative will confirm that you're activated with us. They're going to provide you with a whole bunch of really great resources. Your school's user administrator is going to be able to assign access to the appropriate users at your institution that they want to be able to view and access the data and update the data. And then once NSLDS sends out those completers lists, they will come to the clearinghouse, and then that process will get started where we will work with you to get those completers lists processed. We do have a webinar on how to activate our service. It's scheduled for July 24th. I believe it is full right now, but we are offering an overflow webinar on July 29th. So if you are interested in learning more about the activation process, you can certainly sign up for that. So just some things that your institution can do now to prepare. We are strongly encouraging institutions to have the conversation internally now. If you haven't started having the conversation, please start having that conversation. What we're seeing for most institutions is it's going to take multiple departments to get the data that is needed for reporting. Most of the time, it will be the IR department or financial aid department that's taking the lead, but this is one of those reporting things where it takes a village. In addition, start thinking about that decision for the standard or transitional cohort. We're happy to provide additional guidance on things to think about as you're making that decision, but it's really going to come down to what is the right data file for your institution based on your institution's circumstances. And then stay up to date on the latest information that's out there. Our site continues to post updates on where the regulations are at, where our solution is at, and our new resources that we're making available. We have the Activating Our Solution webinar coming up. We also have a completers list webinar coming up. So please stay tuned for those. And the top three things to know right now, I would say we're designing a free solution to help you meet all of your FVT and GE regulatory needs. Once that completers list comes out, you have 60 days. So that may be before the October 1st date. So keep that in mind. If that completers list does come out on July 31st, that you will have 60 days from that date, which may end up being before the October 1st date. And then stay up to date on all of the new developments by following our resources. I have a whole laundry list of resources here for you, including the federal financial aid resources, a resource from NASFA, and then a slew of resources from the clearinghouse. So as we said at the beginning, we're going to provide these slides to you, so all of these links will be accessible. And then finally, if you have questions or anything that's institution specific, please reach out to me and my team, and we are happy to talk to you about those questions and provide any guidance or feedback that we can. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we are going to open it up to questions, I think. Right, Hope?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much, Sean. And I'm glad whatever gremlin, I understand. Thank you to Katie from Pacific, who told me that actually you could hear me at first and then not later. So whatever gremlin put me on mute, because I didn't. Sean, I'm glad that didn't happen to you today. So thank you for that excellent presentation. We do have a number of questions, and I would ask Sean, you or Melba to put into the chat with so many people. We do have over 600 people on this. So if we could put the link to the slides in the chat,
Yes, absolutely.
and that way we are not trying to get them out to everybody and everybody can copy and paste or whatever they need to do for that. But we do have a number of questions, and I'll go through those with you, Sean, if you're ready for that.
I am ready.
Okay, one of the first ones, and we've talked a little bit about the clock with the 60 days. And so just to reiterate on that, it's saying, when does the clock start for the 60 days to review the list? When it was released by the feds or when we get it from the clearinghouse?
That's a great question. So it's actually a question I asked to Federal Student Aid on Monday. Our understanding is that FSA is going to release everybody's completers list at the exact same time, and then they're going to give 1 or 2 days time for those completers lists to be received, and then they're going to publish an electronic announcement that says 60 days from this point, we require all completers lists to be responded to. So it won't be a different date for each institution depending upon when you receive it. It'll basically be 60 days for everybody from the date that they are generated by NSLDS plus 2 days, we'll say. That is their intention at this point in time.
Well, I like the way you add their intention at this point in time, right? Okay, second, does the recent decision from the U.S. Supreme Court to rescind Chevron affect the reporting requirements or deadlines in any way?
So it hasn't been specifically called out at this point. Our understanding is there's a couple weeks left before folks go into before Congress goes out in August for vacation and for going back and campaigning and doing some of the normal stuff back in their home states. We don't really expect any kind of major decisions to be coming out in the next 2 weeks that we've heard about. There is the possibility. I'm getting an echo.
Okay, I think can we ask anybody who's not muted to please mute your microphone, please?
See if she's in there.
Can we ask anyone who's not muted to please mute your microphone, please? Thanks so much. Okay.
Sean, I hope you're on mute now.
Yeah, I was on mute. Sorry.
It was the gremlin. The gremlin is here. Yes,
yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Melba.
So we don't really expect to see any major changes in the next 2 weeks, but we'll certainly keep everybody posted. We have our ear to the ground and we're listening closely.
Okay, great. And here's a question. If our school already opted into the batch reporting through NSLDS for financial very transparency, gainful employment, is it still possible to enroll in the NSC service?
Absolutely. It's
Absolutely.
a
Okay.
it's a fairly easy process. We will actually do the SAGE paperwork on our side. You will just need to sign the addendum.
Okay. Well, absolutely. That's the first absolutely thing I've heard on the US DOE requirements. Okay. Is the clearinghouse using NSLDS data to then feed to us, or are you using the data we submit to the clearinghouse? I think you answered that, but I want to be sure to go through all the questions.
So it's a combination of both. So we're going to take what's included on the completers list, and we're going to compare that to the data that the schools have sent to us to make sure that everything is shored up. You're getting as much credit for your graduates that have been sent to us as possible. But if there are data things that you've sent to the NSLDS that are not reflected in our database, we're going to call those out to you as well.
Great, thank you. Have the feds released the completion list through the NSLDS?
No, they have not. Their intention is looking like the very end of this month, but they will be announcing that as they get closer.
Okay, and this tells you the stress that our folks are under across the country, Sean. Can we rely on Clearinghouse that your solution is going to work and be on time for the deadline, giving institutions enough time to do the work they need to do?
I love that question. So we have 25 schools that are working with us on beta testing and that are going to be helping us make sure that those things are true. Our beta testing, we're working with our beta testers the first week of August on the completers list portion. And then our release 2 is going to include the student detail and program functionality, which will come out shortly after release 1. And so we're going to continue to provide updates and announcements on our website. But there is, if you go out to our GE FVT landing page, at the very bottom, there's a notify me option. And if you select that, as we have enhancements and as we are releasing additional functionality, we will notify you that it is available. In addition to, if you are signed up for the service, you will see those notifications in the platform itself. So we're trying to be as robust as possible in communicating everything that's available, when it's available, and the timeline that it will be available on.
And John, I think this is a good opportunity to talk about, and this question will come up later, some of the things we've done around staffing to shore up the fact that we know, to Hope, to your point, a lot of people are feeling a lot of tension around this, especially the short time frame that we have to comply. We ourselves are scrambling as the requirements have been released to try to keep up and pivot where things have changed when we heard from the department. And so that's to Sean's point around making you aware when we have enhancements, getting feedback during the beta tests, fixing any issues that we can catch prior to a full launch to everyone. So do you want to talk a little bit about, because there's some questions around, do we have the staff and are we ready to support the influx that's coming?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have, from day one, declared this our #1 organizational priority. And as such, we've moved many of our technical resources that were focused on other priorities to this to make sure that this is successful. In addition, we've augmented the team with external resources, and we are continuing to augment the team with external resources to make sure that this is successful. We've got folks working honestly around the clock on this at this point to make sure that we're going to deliver something that is going to not only meet but exceed expectations for our institutions. We know how much is riding on this for our schools. We are going to be onboarding an additional 8 staff members to help with the activation process here in the next week, just to help schools have those in-person resources that are going to have questions as they're coming on board and navigating the portal for the first time. So we are doing everything that we can to make sure that schools have exactly what they need through the uncertainty of this next phase.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Here's one, and we haven't really talked about this, but I know there has been discussion about it, and that is, can we get a list of the student information systems that this solution supports?
That is a great question. So we have been working directly with Ellucian and Genzibar to come up with a way in which at least those two SISs can report directly into the clearinghouse's solution. We're continuing to connect with and reach out to the other SISs, but Ellucian and Genzibar have taken a very active role in making a solution for their clients. Ellucian had a webinar last Friday, I believe, on their solution, and Genzibar is doing a really lovely job in creating a solution that is going to be very, I think, interactive for the schools that report into them.
And since Ellucian has multiple SISs, right, that would
That's
apply
correct.
to all.
Correct.
Okay, just double checking for our folks, as I'm sure that will come up if we don't say that. Okay, wait, are we sending you the completer list, or are you generating it for us?
That's a great question. So it depends on the timing of your activation. If you are activated before the federal student aid generates the completers list, then the completers list will come to us directly. If you are activated afterwards, then you will have to take a step to go into NSLDS and push the first list to us.
So it's all about the timing of when they engage with the clearinghouse.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Okay, someone says, oh, this is back to the muting issue. Someone's saying maybe it's a phenomenon issue. Maybe you fenced the bunnies in. So Sean, I don't know. I like that. Okay, the waiting for the solution is making people nervous since the feds have already opened the process.
Yes. Yeah, and we understand that it has people a little bit on pins and needles. To explain a little bit around the wait, we had focused initially on the program and student detail, but were advised midstream that the completers list was expected to come out much earlier in July, and there was going to be that 60-day window on the completers list, which would have put the due date for the completers list well in advance of the October deadline. And so we had to make a pivot at that point in time. And so we moved away from the student detail and program files, which are now well underway, but had to pivot to the completers list because of that impending deadline that would put schools at risk of not meeting their deadline if we didn't prioritize that first. And so now that we're prioritizing the completers list first, we have a little bit more work to button up on that to make sure that that functionality is available to our institutions. But we are tracking really well and really smoothly for the first week of August.
Okay. Actually, how are you capturing attendees to send the slides and recording? I didn't have to register. And so what we will do is take a copy of that and we'll send this back to our state execs as we did the same process to get it to you. The reason we didn't do a calendar invitation registration process is with Teams, in order to get the capacity, as I said earlier, to be able to have up to 1,000. We've had over 600 people on this today. We needed to use Teams, but when you forward invitations, it gets really messy in Teams. And so we just listed the link. So we'll send this back out to our colleagues across the states and our state executives, and they'll send that back out. We'll ask them to send that back out to campuses, and a number of them. I think though we've had about 600 on this, I think I've had 600 requests for the recording too. So we'll make sure that we are doing this. And I just saw that we have 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get to the other questions. Day 60 will be too close to the deadline, Sean. Day
Yes.
60 will be too close to the deadline, just so that's a statement, I think, not a question, but just want you to know that they're saying that. Okay.
Yeah, we all agree.
Okay. I didn't think there was any disagreement there. Who at the institution will receive the completers list?
So that I don't know the right way to answer that question, but I'm going to do my best to answer it as robustly as possible. So if you're talking about through NSLDS, it depends on who you've signed up for within the NSLDS portal to receive those notifications for to where your stage files will get delivered. If you're talking about through the clearinghouse, once we receive your completers list, there will be a process during our activations process where we're going to work with your user administrator and your financial value transparency and GE contact to assign user roles and responsibilities. And we will notify you once your completers list is available for review. So those individuals will receive a notification, and you'll be able to come out to our portal to interact with the completers list and resolve each of those 3 buckets of work.
Okay, and I'm going to speed up on this because we're running out of time, and I
Sure.
don't want it to get cut off before people get a chance to hear. Are all schools automatically sent the completers list from NSC, or do we have to sign up with NSC? I think you addressed that later. If they haven't signed up, earlier rather, if they haven't signed up with NSC, they won't get anything from you, right?
Correct. That's correct.
Correct. So if so, how do we sign up? And you mentioned the link and where they can go, and that'll be in the slides, and you have put the slides in the messages, right? Okay,
Not
so
yet, but I will.
Not yet? Okay.
Yeah. And Hope, I've recorded some of these questions as well, which I said I've taken note of them. We are
Great.
going to use them to inform the FAQ, but we'll also use them to generate a response that can go out to the team that'll address some of the questions in the chat.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Melva. I appreciate that. Is this process just for the 23-24 year? What about reporting on prior years required by October 1?
So the process is, so that's the student detail and program file. Those processes are what are going to be delivered and released to in August. And we are going to include for this, for release 2, it is all about prior year reporting. Next year, for annual reporting, there will be additional functionality for your annual reporting that will be required starting next year.
Okay. And will the completers only include those in programs with greater than 30 members in the cohort?
So greater than 30 graduates. It should only include it should only include programs that have more than 30 completers in the last 4 years.
Okay. And then evidently there was a problem with screen sharing that I'm just seeing now. I'm sorry if those of you who had that issue. Can we go ahead and make sure we put the screen share in, the link to the slides, if y'all will get that. Asked about staff, you've already addressed that. Who from the institution can sign up for this service?
It depends on who at your institution has the authority. Sometimes it's procurement, sometimes your financial aid director can, sometimes it has to go to the president's office. It's basically an amendment to your enrollment reporting in compliance service with us. So whoever would normally sign one of those agreements.
Okay. Primary, secondary, DPA, what does this mean?
That's the administrator in NSLDS. So essentially, it's who is responsible as your primary destination point administrator within NSLDS.
Okay, and then I think we're about to run out of time. So if we do, thanks to everyone coming, but I will ask this one last question in case we are cut off. When and how will we indicate our choice of reporting option, standard or transitional?
So in our platform, you will have the ability to declare that, and it will be up to the person that has the authority at your institution to declare that. And we will save that preference for you. And then up until you've actually we've sent those files to NSLDS on your behalf, you will be able to make a change. So if you decide that you're going to start with transitional, you're going to go all the way through the process, but at the last minute you decide, I don't know about this, we actually want to do standard instead, you can switch that option, and we will work with you to make sure that all of your data is buttoned up for the standard option instead.
Okay. What time frame is needed by the clearinghouse to complete reviews and submit information to NSLDS after the school returns the file with the financial information?
So I think what we're looking for is 10 days. So ideally, it will happen much faster than that, but we are going to be working very actively with your institution. So as soon as we receive that information from your institution, depending upon the accuracy and integrity of the data, if it's if it's pretty clean data, we can process it almost instantly. If there are larger issues within the data, it may take us some back and forth with you to figure those things out.
Right, thank you. And Melva, thank you for saying you've gotten the questions and you'll put those in the FAQs, but we'll keep going until evidently we may be cut off here. Will the clearinghouse be able to account for programs that have changed zip codes during the reporting period?
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
we collect all that information from you all.
Okay, and the concern about not being able to get all the data on licensure exams and pass rates, and can you go over the order of operations again for the completers list? But I think maybe that would be one to go back, because that will take a little while to go back to the FAQs about. Another question about 30, can you provide the link to the webinar in the chat? Can you add the link for the registration? We didn't have the registration piece. How do we approach licensure that requires multiple exams to be licensed as a teacher in Texas, for example, according to our College of Education? So multiple exams on licensure.
So that would be a question I would have to go back to FSA and ask. Are they asking, I guess the clarifying question I would ask is is it a different licensure exam in each surrounding state, or is it multiple exams for the same state?
Well, this is unusual because it's not like this in North Carolina. So maybe Texas certainly is Texas, right? As each state is its own. But it says, how do we approach licensure that requires multiple exams, 7 exams to be licensed in Texas?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. We would have to ask NSLDS or your accrediting agency.
Right. And I'm not sure where Golden Gate came from.
I am not sure either.
Or either.
That's
Sean, I cannot paste into the chat. Can you?
I am gonna put the webinar in there in just 1 second. I'm working on that right now. So
That's what I was trying to do.
okay. So you put it in. Here's the web page to register. So we have that. Since we were
when we go into beta testing, I did see a question about unsure when we can sign up. We are going to start, the first activation webinar will be in the next few weeks. At that point in time, we'll start sending out communication around how to sign up, including access to the addendums. So we'll begin to notify people with instructions on how to sign up.
Okay, and then there was also a question. We were able to pull some reports from NSLDS that seem to include completers and enrolled. Are these not the completers list?
They are not the completers list.
Okay,
So, yeah, NSLDS
Okay.
will advise when they actually generate the completers list.
Okay, and the question about how's debt being divided for double majors? Or
So
is it
that's actually up to your institution to determine. The guidance from NSLDS is you can split it 50-50, or if one of the programs actually has a higher amount of debt associated with it, say it's an electrical engineering program versus a basket weaving program, you can assign whatever percentage you deem is most appropriate for that particular program.
Okay, and once SAIG paperwork is given, how long till we can start working on data?
So the platform should be available starting I believe the 2nd week of August. And then you will be notified at that point in time when your completers list is available and ready for processing.
Yeah, and there's one about calculations that I think may require more time than we have here. So I don't know, Melvin, if you have a second to look for that one. But there is a question. Okay, good. What is the deadline to sign up for the addendum with NSC? Is there a deadline for sign up?
That's a great question. I think that obviously we would like as much time to work with you as possible on the data and resolving any kind of data discrepancies. The sooner you sign up, the more time we have to do that. If you don't sign up with us, for example, until September 15th, it really just inhibits our abilities to support you responding to the completers list and help you process the standard or transitional cohort and the program file. So it puts if you wait that long, it puts your institution at a disadvantage, but we will certainly do all we can to help you with the reporting if that is where we land.
Okay, and there's another timeline question. If we get 60 days with the completers list, that takes us to late September. When do we augment the data with cost and student loan data after the 60 days?
So you don't. So the completers list doesn't get augmented with the institutional cost and student loan data. That actually is included in the student detail file. So the student detail and program files will be available in August as well. And at that point, that is where we will provide you with those cohorts, and you will respond to those cohorts with the student aid and institutional cost information. So they're separate processes.
Okay. How can we view NSC's program level information to verify G statuses were reported? We can only view the programs in the most recent file.
So this will be a part of the platform.
Okay, so the new platform.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, you mentioned that programs included on the completers list will be those with 30 or more graduates in the 4 most recent completed award years. The FVT handbook indicates a subsequent measure where it then moves to checking for 30 or more completers in the applicable cohort years at the 6-digit zip code level. Is this accurate?
It is accurate.
Okay.
Yes. And we are taking all of that logic into account.
Okay, let's see. We've got lots of folks thanking you, saying we need your help so much. So please know that this is great. And then a question, can we begin activation now, or must we wait for the July 29 overflow webinar?
So we're asking you to wait until July 29th. Our beta customers are going through the activations process right now, and we're integrating any kind of red lines or suggestions that they have. And so we feel like that's a really important part of the process to make sure that when we provide the amendments to our schools, that it has gone through that iteration and can most accurately reflect the best amendment possible for all institutions.
Okay, great. We've got other SIS questions. Power Fade School here asking, when, so can they still use this if?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, every school can use it. It's just a matter of whether or not your SIS has the ability to take the report that we're going to provide to you and marry it up with data directly from the SIS. So you may just have to do more work with your IT department or your institutional research department to locate the information and marry it up into the report that we're going to provide you versus your SIS actually building an extract that links into the report that we're going to provide you.
Okay, and then Caitlin did a great job. I'm not going to read all that here. I hope all of you saw that in the chat. Just the feds have not made this clear about the completers list, and so I can't do all of that, but that I think most of these are thank yous, but I'm not clear on how NSC and NSLDS are working together on this project. Do we need to choose one over the other?
So you will ultimately have to choose one. So if because you'll have to respond either directly to NSLDS or you'll have to use the clearinghouse to help facilitate that response. And that's where that stage process becomes an important part of the process. The clearinghouse is working with NSLDS and FSA to make sure that we're advocating on behalf of all of the schools that we support for all of the various scenarios, many of which have come up on this call today, so that when they're operationalizing the rules and regulations, those things are considered, and the rules and regulations are delivered in a way that is easily understandable. Sorry for laughing there. That is easy to digest and that that takes into account those unique school scenarios that you are given the flexibility to determine on your own.
Okay, great. Let's see. I did not get this link from state executives. I can't imagine how else you got it. But in any case, it says, can it be posted on the NSC website? I think that would probably be a little difficult. So I think, why don't you, if you need a link and you're not getting it through your state execs, if you'll just write me at Williams, WILLIAMS, at NCICU.org, and we'll make sure you get a copy of the recording. Can you provide any information on which degree programs are required to be reported under the new regulations?
which degree programs are required to be reported. Is that the question?
That's the
Yeah.
question.
So all programs are required to be reported. So any program that's required that is Title IV eligible is required to be reported.
Okay, and does the activation process involve declaring transitional or standard methods? Do you have to
It
declare
does
which
not.
way? It does
No.
not. So you can actually work with folks to help them determine the best way. Because there was
Absolutely.
another question in there about, well, what is it that you need to do if your costs have gone up? What's the best way? So
Mhm.
I'm sure that the clearinghouse staff can work with everybody to help them figure out answers to their individual questions about that.
Yes.
Okay, and the slides, were you all able to get the slide list in the chat?
I sent it. Hopefully it stuck. And someone
I'm
confirm
still
that they can see
scrolling
it.
down, so.
Okay.
I did not see it, Sean, so that's why I was saying I was having trouble as well.
Okay. I put it in there at 4:10. So if you don't mind, somebody
Okay.
can
Let's see.
confirm if they could see it at 4:10.
Okay, all right, 410, we'll see. I think most of these are thank yous. Looking to see if there's, okay, still unclear at 4:01, when can we sign up? And I think you said as of the 29th, right? Okay, webinar registration link,
Okay, there it is.
Five.
It just popped up. Okay, awesome.
okay. Let's see.
There it
if
is,
there's-
Sean. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, great. Vicky put the YouTube in for the recording on the YouTube channel piece. That's the link for that as well. And I will put my address in the chat in case anybody needs that. Go there. And let's see,
Oh, no.
they're about a code. See if there's anything else. The link is not working.
Yeah.
Slide link's not
It's
working?
asking for a code.
Hmm.
Oh, the code arrives in your email after, and then someone says it worked for me.
Okay, thank goodness.
Hmm.
Put in your email, a verification code that gets mailed. I can't keep up. These are moving so fast.
Yeah.
Once you enter your email, it will send you a code. It worked. Hey, I'm glad to hear that it worked.
All right, thank goodness.
Okay. I think we've got it. Some emails don't work. I don't know that we can resolve that today. I think if you have a Teams app, it works, but I don't.
Okay. We may post this. Sean, we can probably post this on a site actually as well. And we'll think about how to do that. So we'll provide that.
Okay,
Well,
awesome.
Let's talk about, because I'm, whether we post this publicly to everybody or just how we do this, right? And if anybody's having trouble getting it, if you'll just send an email here. I mean, if you can get it, please get it. But if you're having trouble, if you'll send me an email, we'll make sure you get a copy of it if you don't have the Teams app or anything.
This is
And
information, Hope, we are sharing publicly, so it'll be consistent with some stuff that is on our GE site today.
okay, so you're not talking about doing the recording then?
No, not the recording,
Oh,
just the slide.
Sorry, I misunderstood. So yes,
Sorry.
the slides,
Yeah, just
the slides and the questions, yes, all of that would be terrific.
Okay.
So if they just go to the Clearinghouse website, they'll be able to get that information. Okay, so don't worry. Right? I'm still being asked for my email, everyone. But please know that it is also going to be on the Clearinghouse website. It would just confuse me about the recording bill, but thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, I think we're about done with most of the questions that folks have. I want to thank you, everybody, for being on. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to contact us. We'll be sending the recording and the slides through our state execs, and they'll be putting the slides and the questions on the Clearinghouse website. So one way or the other. Thank you so much, everybody. And special thanks to Sean and Melva today. Really
Thank you so much,
appreciate it.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.